Hello everyone, it's Eleana here from Lavinia Stamps Design Team. Thank you for joining me today, and I'd like to share with you how I made this card, Enchanted Dreams. To do the background, we're going to be using the Elements inks. So I'm going to start off by using this lovely lime punch, and then we're going to build it up using violet chalk and then Dala blue. I'm going to be using one of the new mica sprays, and this one's Purple Orchard that has that lovely gold mica in it. So if I just lift this up, you might be able to see some of that mica shimmering around the edge of the card, just like around the top here and a bit around the bottom, just giving the card a little bit of interest. For stamping with, we're going to use Versafine Clair Nocturne, Fantasia, Monarch, and then Twilight. We're going to use some of these beautiful Bronzeal watercolour pencils just to do a little bit of colouring on the fairy thistles. Posca pens, I'm going to use a yellow Posca pen, a white Posca pen, and then a pink Posca pen, just to do some little touches around the bottom. A yellow Uniball pen, just to do some highlights on the fairy and the snail, just so that it gives a nice gentle glow. Then, for a little bit of sparkle, I'm going to use some of this beautiful Eco-Glitter. And this one's Fairytales. And this has got all the lovely lilacs and purples in it. And that just goes well with my colour scheme. So for the stamps, we're going to use Enchanted Dreams, the single fairy thistles, orchard grass, and this beautiful verse, See a Fairy, Make a Wish. So, let's get started. For today's card, I'm using a piece of card that is 5 inches by 7.5 inches. So I'm going to start off by using Elements Lime Punch. So I'm just going to pop that down onto my mat. Add a bit of water, and then just going to pick it up all over the card. So I'm just going to keep rotating my card around and just pick the colour up, and then I'm going to give it another spritzing just so that we can cover our card. And then I'm going to give this a quick dry with my heat gun. And then I'm going to use Elements Violet Chalk. So I'm just going to put that down onto my mat, giving it another spritzing with some water. And then I'm just going to go around the edge of our card. So I'm just going to do this just randomly around the edge. Just picking up some of this colour. And then I'm going to pop that to the side and then give this a dry. going back to the mat where the ink is. So going back to the mat where the ink is, and I'm just going to carry on, just picking up more of that ink. So I'm just going to keep picking that ink up. There. Then I'm going to use Dala Blue. So I'm just going to pop that down onto my mat, giving it one more spritzing with a bit of water, and then we're going to go around the very edge of our card. So we're just building up our layers. And I'm going to use now some mica infused mist spray, and this one's Purple Orchard, which has got this lovely gold mica in it. So I'm just going to shake this up, and then I'm just going to add some onto my mat there, and then I'm going to go around, just round the edge, just picking this up. And then giving this a good dry with the heat gun. So now the card is dry, and if I just move this around, you can see parts of where the mica is and where it's dried onto our card, which is creating a beautiful effect around the edge of our card. So I've popped my card onto my stamping platform, and I've got the carrier sheet for Enchanted Dreams. So I'm just going to pop that into place. And I've got the medium-sized circle mask here. So with my carrier sheet in place, I can roughly work out where I'd like her to be. So I think we're going to go for there. So I just slide the carrier sheet out, and then I can just pop my magnet over it. So I'm going to use Elements Violet Chalk just to blend around our moon. So I'm going to move my magnet out of the way, pick up the ink, and just get that blended softly. So I'm just going to go around just the top half of the circle. So I'm just going to go around here. And I've just done the top half of the circle. Then I'm going to pop the carrier sheet back into place, and I'm going to use one of the hill masks. So now I'm just going to pop this into place there, take my carrier sheet out, and I'll just use my magnets for the moment to keep my hill mask into place. And for blending with, I'm going to use this Fine Clair Medieval Blue. So I'm just going to load up my stencil brush and then just gently start to do our ground. Then I'm going to use another mask. and we're just going to gently just create some hills in the distance. So I'm going to use the same brush, but I'm not picking up any more ink. I'm just using what's on my brush. So I'll just flick it out. We want these to be gentle in the distance. And there we have our beautiful mountains in the distance. Before I do any more stamping, I'm just going to do a bit of faux bleaching just to get our moon a little bit wider. So I'm just going to use some water and my brush, and then I'm just going to do a bit of faux bleaching so we can just get some of this colour out. With your brush, take it, just tap off the excess, and then you can just tap that just randomly over your card. And then we can just take off and just dab off the excess water. So we're just doing a bit of faux bleaching. So I'm just going to do a bit more of these. Just giving that a few seconds to interact with the ink, and then we can just take off any water. So we're just starting to build up our scene. And then before I'm going to stamp, I'm just going to give this a quick dry just to make sure it's dry enough to stamp on. So now I'm going to use my Enchanted Dream stamp, and I'm just going to see where I'd like that to be. And to stamp with, I'm going to use Versafine Clair Nocturne. So I'm just going to pick that stamp up, give it a good ink up. There. So I'm going to use the single fairy thistle, and for that I'm going to stamp with Versafine Clair Fantasia. So I'm just going to pick that stamp up and then ink this up. So we're just going to give this a good inking and then stamp. So I'm just going to now just place that into place. Bring my card down and then stamp this. So we're just going to use the same colour just to stamp it all up. I'm just going to ink this up. So we're going to make sure that we get all of those fine details. I'm going to pop a piece of copy of paper into place. Give it a press down, and then I'm going to pop this just where I want this to go. Use my magnet to keep that in place, and then we're just going to stamp. So I've got my Enchanted Dreams, and now I'm just going to quickly ink that up, put a piece of scrap copy paper over it, give it a rub, and now I'm just going to cut out the fairy wings. So I've just cut around the fairy wings, and I'm just going to pop that into place, and I'm just going to use my magnets to hold that. And then with the carrier sheet we can work out where we want another set of these lovely fairy thistles. So now I'm just going to pop that down, pick it up, and then I'm going to use Fantasia still just to stamp with. So I'm just going to ink that up using a piece of scrap card or copier paper. I'm going to do my first generation of stamping and then my second one. Then I'm just going to use this beautiful verse, Sea of Fairy, Make a Wish. So I'm just going to pop that into place. So I'm just going to ink the stamp up, put my copier paper over, take my first generation of inking, and then stamp second generation onto my card. And then we're just going to bring that down once more. And then again, just in second generation of inking. So just ink it up. I'm going to use the same piece of copier paper. First generation of ink, and then second generation. And then we're just going to create the same on to this side. And then I'm going to use this lovely orchard grass just to put a bit more interest into the card. And then for stamping with, I'm going to use VersaFine Clair Twilight. So I'm just going to ink the top half up and then just stamp it. And you can always go back over it again just to make it a little bit darker. So we're just going to build this up now. I'm going to be using VersaFine Clair Monarch to do the last bit of stamping with. So I'm using the single fairy thistle, and I've just popped it onto my finger, and all I'm going to do now is just ink up this top off here, and we're just going to stamp that now just randomly over the card. So that is all of our inking and stamping done, and now we just need to add the finishing touches and a bit of colour. To colour in these fairy thistles, I'm going to be using Bronzeal watercolour pencils. So I'm just going to pop that open, and we're going to use the pink first. So I'm just going to gently just colour our single fairy thistles in first. And then I'm going to use this blue, and all I'm going to do now is just use my wet brush and rolling it over the nib, and then I'm just going to do a bit of shading over the right side of this single fairy thistle, and then I'm just going to blend that in, so we're just creating a bit of shadow. So now we need to work on our beautiful lantern. So I'm just going to use a yellow first, and we're just going to quickly just colour around our lantern and just a little bit on the outside. And then I'm just going to use an orange just to do the middle part there. And then just with my brush and with a bit of water, we're now just going to blend that all together. So we're just going to get that going now. I'm going to use a yellow uniball pen, and I'm just going to do a line over our fairy and then just gently blend it all in. So I'm just going to start to do a bit of gentle highlight on her. And then for the wings, I'm just going to use a Stardust glitter pen. So I'm just going to quickly colour this in. And we're just going to create some shadow under our Enchanted Dreams. So I'm just going to use the black watercolour pencil just to do a bit of shadow there. So I've used a light pink posca pen just to go over the tops of our fairy thistles, just to act like little fairy flowers. And then just by using the ivy, I just went over some other ones just to create a bit of interest, and just did some little clumps of little dots. A yellow posca pen now, and I'm just going to do some little random dots just around our card. So I'm just going to do some at different sizes. And then I'm just going to use a white posca pen just to do the tops of these ones here. And then to finish it off, I'm going to use some Eco-Glitters, and this one's Fairytales. So I'm just going to use my Quickie Glue pen, and we're just going to do some random dots.